This is about obsession.
The relationship between Prohibition-era bootlegger George Remus and Imogene Holmes unraveled into one of the most notorious crimes of the 1920s. While serving a prison sentence for violating Prohibition laws, Remus confided in fellow inmate Franklin Dodge, who was secretly working as an undercover government agent. Learning that Imogene controlled Remus's vast fortune, Dodge resigned from his government position, began an affair with her, and together they allegedly sold off much of Remus's distillery empire. They also attempted to have Remus deported and were accused of hiring a hitman to kill him, though both plots failed.
Things turned very real, very fast.
We have him on the line now.
When it was Clark who called 911.
My name is Brandon. The victim is Bianca Michelle Devins.
After his release in 1927, Remus sought revenge. On the very day his divorce from Imogene was scheduled to be finalized, he confronted her as she fled from a taxi in Cincinnati's Eden Park. He chased her down and fatally shot her near the park's gazebo. During his trial, a jury found Remus not guilty.
Brandon Clark did speak to Bianca's family. He expressed remorse. He said he's sorry. He didn't know who he was that day when he killed her and that she did not deserve this.
By reason of insanity. Another infamous case is that of Jodi Arias and Travis Alexander, whose turbulent relationship ended in one of the most widely publicized murders in recent history. In June 2008, motivational speaker Travis Alexander was found dead in the shower of his Arizona home. He had suffered a gunshot wound, 27 stab wounds, and a deep slash across his throat. Friends later revealed that Alexander had expressed fears that Arias, his former girlfriend, was stalking him, and investigators determined that she was the last person known to have seen him alive. The couple had begun dating in 2007, but those close to them described the relationship as
Police questioned Mo's friend to find out who Mo had been with that night.
Volatile and increasingly unhealthy. Following Alexander's death, Arias initially denied being at the scene, later claimed masked intruders were responsible.
She fled to Costa Rica, even getting plastic surgery to evade authorities.
She was responsible and eventually argued that she had acted in self-defense. However, investigators recovered deleted photographs from Alexander's camera, including images taken shortly before and during the attack, which became crucial evidence at trial.
Prosecutors said the unhappy wife had lured her husband, Jeffrey Wright, to his deathbed with the promise of romance.
In January, during Dan Broderick's years in medical school and law school, Betty Broderick supported the family by teaching, typing his academic papers, and raising their 4 children. By the mid-1980s, Dan had become a highly successful medical malpractice attorney and left Betty for his legal assistant.
She buried her husband in their Northwest Harris County backyard in a hole he had dug for a home improvement project.
Linda Kolkina, who was 16 years younger than him. As Betty lost custody of her children, much of her financial security, and any hope of saving her marriage, her behavior became increasingly erratic. She crashed her vehicle into Dan's front door, repeatedly left him abusive voicemail messages.
The 44-year-old was released on parole this morning after serving more than 16 of her 20-year sentence for murder.
And on November 5th, 1989, used her daughter's house key to enter the couple's home. She went into their bedroom and fatally shot both Dan Broderick and Linda Kolkina. Betty was later convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to prison, where she remains incarcerated. Another tragic case involved Paris Wilson and Danny Cahalan. The two met through social media while Cahalan was serving a prison sentence for drug-related offenses. Believing he could turn his life around, Wilson stood by him after his release, and together they built a life in Plymouth and welcomed a daughter. However, Cahalan eventually returned to criminal activity, straining their relationship. Following their separation, reports stated that he owed a large debt to a supplier named Ryan Kennedy. In February 2025, several men attacked Cahalan with acid at his home, and he died from his injuries 2 months later. Wilson was initially questioned as a witness, but later admitted to providing information about Cahalan's whereabouts. Although she was acquitted of murder, she was convicted of manslaughter and attempted kidnapping. Some of history's most disturbing crimes involve people who were manipulated into committing horrific acts for someone they love.
A perfect storm, that's how many described it. Two teenage girls fall hard for the same guy. Love, jealousy, and anger would create a volatile mix that would make them seemingly lose their minds.
One such example is the 1954 case involving French woman Denise Lab and her lover, Jacques Algaron. According to prosecutors, Algaron became obsessed with. Mariah Wilson died at the scene of the shooting.
By the time we realized what was going on, Sarah had already jumped out of the car, grabbed Rachel's hair. She was punching. Rachel's arms were flying everywhere.
Murder. Caitlin Armstrong fled to Costa Rica, where she allegedly altered her appearance and lived under a false identity before authorities captured her, ending a 43-day international manhunt. She was later convicted in prison.
And Wade says, behind bars, with her attorney's help, she hopes someone will listen and not end up like her, a young woman who will grow up in prison.
Sentenced to 90 years in prison. Another infamous case is that of Susan and Jeff Wright. There was never any dispute that Jeff Wright...
Broderick may have been successful in his professional life, but his personal life was filled with turmoil. He and his first wife, Betsy, had a bitter divorce.
Died a violent death. The central question at trial was whether Susan Wright was a calculating murderer or a victim of years of domestic abuse acting in self-defense. In January 2003, Susan tied her husband to their bed using neckties before stabbing him 193 times with 2 different knives. She then buried his body in a hole he had previously dug in their backyard for...
Betty said because of Dan's influence in the legal industry, she never got a fair settlement in the divorce. Dan also got custody of their 4 children. He sold their joint property out from under her, then replaced Betty with a younger woman.
Bedroom to conceal evidence, and even filed a false abuse report seeking a restraining order. Days later, Susan confessed to her attorney, who notified law enforcement. Prosecutors argued that she was motivated by Jeff's life insurance money, while the defense maintained that she had suffered years of abuse. Initially sentenced...
We recently learned from the California Department of Corrections that Betty Broderick died of natural causes in prison.
To 25 years in prison, she later received a reduced 20-year sentence after a new punishment hearing and was released in 2020. The murder of Robert Bekowitz remains one of the most disturbing true crime cases in recent memory. Bekowitz was at home watching television, unaware that he was about to become the victim of a horrific attack. He had been dating 21-year-old Janine Clark, who was secretly involved in an affair with his 37-year-old best friend, James Glover. According to investigators, Glover used one of Bekowitz's own firearms to shoot him before stabbing him dozens of times. The brutality continued long after the killing. Over the following 3 days, while reportedly under the influence of drugs, this list explores real-life relationships where unhealthy obsession turned into deadly violence. One of the most disturbing cases is the murder of Bianca Devins. Brandon Clark claimed he loved Bianca, but investigators later described his behavior as a dangerous obsession rather than genuine affection. The two met on Instagram, where Clark quickly became far more emotionally invested than Bianca. In July 2019, Clark, then 21 years old, took Bianca to a concert in New York City. After becoming enraged when he saw her kiss another young man, he drove her back to Utica, New York. The following morning, he fatally attacked her. In a shocking act that horrified the public, Clark posted graphic photos of Bianca's body on Discord, where they rapidly spread across social media. He then attempted to take his own life, but survived and was taken into custody. Investigators later revealed that Clark had planned to kill Bianca if he believed he could not be with her. After pleading guilty, he was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. Another tragic case involved professional cyclist Colin Strickland, yoga instructor Caitlin Armstrong, and fellow cyclist Mariah Wilson. Strickland and Armstrong had an on-again, off-again relationship.
The feds caught up with him. George eventually did have to go to prison.
Before his sentence, Remus made one critical mistake. He signed everything over to his wife, Imogene.
And during one of their breakups, he briefly dated Wilson. According to Strickland, after he and Armstrong reconciled, he and Wilson remained only friends. However, Armstrong reportedly continued to suspect that the relationship had not truly ended.
One by one, Imogene sold off his distilleries and pharmacies.
In May 2022, after Strickland had dinner with Wilson ahead of a cycling race in Austin, Texas, Armstrong tracked Wilson to a friend's apartment and fatally shot her. The case drew widespread attention and highlighted how jealousy and unresolved obsession can have devastating consequences.
I knew it was her because then I knew she was late getting here.
I didn't want it to be Jody. I thought it's probably Jody, but I didn't want it to be Jody because of what that meant for Travis. That this person who he's defended for 2 years, who he loved and took care of and helped, is the person who killed him.